Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us this week. In good news, we were happy to see that McLean County has gone a second consecutive day without any new COVID-19 cases, so we find that really encouraging. Tonight, we're going to hear updates from myself talking about decarceration, Cecilia talking housing, and a message from Bloomington Alderwoman Jen Carrillo updating us on direct aid. So we're excited to see you all here tonight. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Radiance to get us started.
Hi all, we have a little recording to share with you of some personal testimonies from the mutual aid team. So hang on, we're gonna bring that audio up real quick.
Hi there. You guys, all of you, Tori, Adam, several others have been just my guardian angels. My name is Kelly Cobb, and I live in Normal. And you guys, you saved my life. You saved me. You saved my senior dog, Casey. I needed dog food for her. I've been battling COVID, and bless your hearts and your souls. Thank you so very much. And stay well.
Hello, my name is Shelby Shipley, and I received an email asking me to give a testimonial, and I would love to. This organization has been so helpful for us. None of us are able to be there to help my in-laws get groceries, and because they're in their 80s and both have health issues, it would not be safe for them to go out and do the shopping on their own. And it's so easy just to call and leave a message letting Tori's group know what they need. And I've never had one issue. They always call and ask if they can replace something or substitute, or ask me if there's any questions that they have about the list. And then because of some special circumstances, it's best if they just call me and let me know that the groceries are there, and they do that every single time. And then my in-laws are able to get the groceries they need. This organization has really been a lifesaver for us. It's helped keep my in-laws safe and healthy, and also us, and put less pressure on us as a family. I just really can't say enough positive things about this organization and the way that they have helped the community, and their professionalism and the love that they show for doing that volunteer job has been unbelievable. And I just think that you guys have done such an awesome job helping our family out, and I highly have recommended you to other families who are in similar situations. So please keep up all the work you're doing. It really is helping people, helping families, and it's keeping people safe and healthy. So thank you so much for all you do. Have a great day. Bye.
So I just wanted to thank you all for sharing the flyers, both the English and the Spanish versions, because when you do that, it helps us make sure that we reach those who need it. Please continue to share both versions of the flyer. We're going to drop the link in the chat so that you can access that Facebook post more easily. And then I'm going to pass it on over to Reverend Black.
Rev Black, you're on mute.
A question for us to ponder as we organize for the action of social justice. Are we acting on the principle that justice is what love looks like in the public? Social justice is like-minded people. The Illinois IPA, Black Lives Matter, Bloomington-Normal, Democratic Socialists of America, and faith-based organizations and members of the community organizing to improve policies or institutions. The act of social justice is organization. Justice deals with the causes of the problem. Love addresses the symptoms of a problem, such as feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, and housing the homeless are forms of charitable justice. Part of our civil society is the free encounter of people and ideas publicly. There are biblical mandates for what we do. Learn to do justice, learn to do right, seek justice, defend the oppressed, take up the cause of the fatherless, plead the case of the widow. Isaiah chapter 1 and 17. This is what the Lord Almighty said. Administer true justice, show mercy and compassion to one another. Do not oppress the widow and or the fatherless, the foreigner. Zechariah chapter 7, verses 9 through 10. So in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you. For this sums up the law and the prophet, Matthew 7 and 12. Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is to look after orphans and widows in their distress and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. James chapter 1 and 27. Now, if anyone has material possessions, sees a brother or sister in need, but has no pity on them, how can the love of God be in that person? Dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions. And it is not in vain to have the city council to give direct aid to those who fall through the cracks of government assistance, to waive the exorbitant fees of video conferencing and telephone calls while incarcerated, and providing safe housing for the homeless are forms of social and charitable justice that are needed during this COVID-19 pandemic. We are on the right side of history and God's requirement to act justly, love mercy, and to walk humbly with our God. And now we'll hear from Father Doug.
Thanks very much, Reverend Black. Now, in Luke's gospel, Jesus begins his public ministry taking up the prophet Isaiah, and he reads, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring glad tidings to the poor, liberty to captives, to let the oppressed go free." This is really the charter for his ministry. And in Matthew's gospel near the end, in chapter 25, he lays out the criteria for our judgment. He tells us the hungry, the thirsty, the stranger, all the most in need. He says, whatever you do for one of these least brothers or sisters of mine, you did for me. And he adds, if you did not do it for them, you did not do it for me. He sends the people who didn't do it off to perdition. This is a call for personal charity, for sure, but it is a demand for justice. It's not that the poor and the voiceless, it's not the poor and voiceless who are blameless, or blameworthy rather. We are all blameworthy. So many of the marginalized are there because of the structures of our society, because the cards are stacked against them. Jobs are gone and there's no help. We must insist that government does what it can, including the local government, to be sure that no one falls through the cracks, to ensure that all can live safely and eat regularly. We simply dare not remain content with the status quo, with its enormous inequities, do too little to help those in need. If we are to continue Jesus' ministry in the world, and we who claim the name Christian are called to do this, it's imperative that we seek public policies, programs, and directives which treat people more justly, respond to real needs. We must help everyone participate in our society and live with greater dignity. Some years ago, Pope Francis asked us, how can it be that it's not a news item when a homeless person dies of exposure, but it's news when the stock market loses a point or two? How can we continue to stand by when food is thrown away while people are starving? Clearly, he challenges us to say things have to change. So when we advocate, work, lobby, and vote to provide dignity and help for those whom our society puts on the margins. We're simply doing what the Lord asks of us. We must do so with determination, energy, humility, but also with hope. This work for greater justice is ours right now, and it remains the work of a lifetime. As Dr. Martin Luther King reminded us, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. It's confident in this hope that we draw on God's Spirit to sustain us for the long haul and do all we can to make sure everyone shares fully in the life of our community and our nation. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Olivia, who's going to tell her about our work on decarceration. Olivia?
Hi, everyone. So I wanted to update you a little bit about our fundraiser that we created, the Call Fund, to help people contact their loved ones at the McLean County Jail. So we announced that last week on this call, and I'm happy to say that we've raised over $1,400. We've helped 29 people. 6 people today actually have reached out about getting some money on their accounts to contact their loved ones in jail. We actually raised our goal on the GoFundMe just because of the amount of how many people have shown interest and reached out. So we're going to drop that link. If you are able to donate to our GoFundMe, that goes directly into the call fund that we have supporting people who would like to call their loved ones or video chat with their loved ones while in-person visits are shut down. I also just wanted to share a quick story. There's a couple people that I stay in contact with in the jail, and I've been asking that they pass this word around and that they reach out to us on Facebook at Black Lives Matter Bloomington-Normal, or that they send us an email. And he said that he's been telling people, and then they come back to him in a few days and they're like, they really did it, you know, they really put that money on my brother's account or on my dad's account or on my sister's account, and I'm really going to get to video chat with them this week. So I think if you're able, we're going to continue to give support as much as we can, but we do need the funds to do that. So if you are able during this time to add a little bit of money to our fundraiser, we'd love for your support. I also wanted to mention that yesterday there was a McLean County board meeting, and we did submit a public comment about the extreme costs of video visits during this time. So we wanted to make sure that the McLean County board, who is in contract with the telecommunications company, that telecommunications company is called IC Solutions, and they have a contract with the county for video visits. And so we have asked the county to take this issue on. We want them to have a discussion on waiving or subsidizing these fees while in-person visits are canceled. So I would really encourage you to reach out to your county board representative and ask them if they would be interested in subsidizing or waiving these fees during this time. There was another question that was raised during this meeting, and that question was how much the county board actually makes on commission of these calls. So that's another question I would really love an answer to, is to know how much the county board makes monthly, yearly on commission of that with the contract that they have with IC Solutions on these video calls and phone calls, right? Because in my opinion, if they're making any commission off these calls, let's at least use that money to subsidize calls during the coronavirus, right? So we would definitely encourage you to ask your county board member if they can, you know, tell you how much money in commission they make from their contract with this telecommunications company. So with that, that's kind of our update. We'll keep you updated on how many people we're helping, how much money we're spending, and how much money we've raised. But I'm going to pass it over to Cecilia, and she's going to update us on housing.
Thanks, Olivia. This week, we're going to have open up our housing section to hear from Neil Iden about the reality of what it looks like to be homeless in our community and some of the barriers and risks to not having safe housing during a pandemic. Neil?
Thank you very much, Cecilia. I just wanted to kind of take a few minutes here to walk everybody through what it looks like to be homeless in McLean County right now during this crisis. If I find myself homeless here, my first call is probably going to be the Path Crisis Center. A homeless services worker there would do an intake with me to ask me a bunch of questions, and then they put me on their prioritization list, which is a waiting list for housing. I would only qualify for that list if I had literally nowhere to sleep. If I had a friend or family who might be able to keep me for a week or a time, if I was couch hopping, in other words, I would not be able to be on that list. As of this week, 83 individuals are on that list, and 16 families with minor children are on that list. They've all been waiting for about 6 months or more without any word on housing because the need far outweighs the resources that are made available to them. If I'm on that list, I might get bumped off completely if I lose contact, which is easy to do when I have no stable way to pay my phone bill. After I've set up with them, I may go and get in contact with the Bloomington Housing Authority to get on their wait list. Again, there's a lengthy process to apply for that. And once I'm on that list, I may be waiting for a year or more before hearing from them because, again, they don't have enough housing to meet McLean County's needs. So my first 2 calls, I've spent probably a few hours getting applied here to both of those, and they do nothing to help with my immediate need. So I'm referred then to our 2 shelters. Home Sweet Home Mission will take intakes between 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. on a weekday. They may or may not have room for me, but in this situation, because of something in my background, a charge that could be as old as 7 years would prevent me from staying in that shelter. So then I would be referred over to Salvation Army Safe Harbor, which right now they don't have any bed space available for a man. I would go on the wait list. And so that would require me checking in either in person or by phone twice a day to make certain I maintain that time on that list. Meanwhile, at that point, I'm spending my days at the shelter because other libraries, other public places that I might spend time at aren't open right now. Now, the staff at the shelter does everything they can to make certain to keep the place as clean as possible, checking people as much as they can, but they don't have the resources to do active testing there. And there's only so much work that they can do when you have so many people concentrated in one space. Our social service agencies in our community are staffed with a lot of dedicated people, but their resources are stretched even in the best of times. And that situation's made much harder during this global pandemic. I'm going to turn things back over to Cecilia to kind of go over a little bit more.
Thanks, Neil. And yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that with us. I want you to kind of imagine too, like when you're in that situation, you're in crisis of trauma, having to fill out tons of paperwork and go through tons of steps is just another added stress on your life as you're just struggling to figure out how to live. So we know our social service organizations are doing what they can to serve those who are housing insecure or homeless with limited staff capacity and restrictive resources. As the shelter-in-place order continues, more and more people have lost their jobs and their rent and bill costs are piling up. With no financial assistance available, even more people in our community are housing insecure and at risk of becoming homeless. We know the risks are high in our shelters with congregate living situations, where social distancing is impossible. We've heard from other social service staff that there hasn't been testing in the shelters unless someone shows symptoms. We know this is problematic because individuals can be asymptomatic but still carry and spread the virus. Last week, the mayor of Chicago publicly announced their coordinated efforts to more urgently address the risks homeless individuals are facing with the pandemic. Earlier today, Chicago health officials released reports that the increased testing they started last week in their homeless shelters has now revealed varying levels of infection, with some locations having as many as half of their staff and residents testing positive. They explained that most of the people in alternative housing were showing in the shelters were showing no symptoms, and they are now moving more quickly on implementing alternative housing plans. They've been moving homeless individuals into hotels to implement adequate social distancing, and they are having conversations on how to designate vacant public apartments for longer-term housing needs. They are still testing people and expect the rates of virus spread to be even higher than they originally predicted. We can't wait until a full-on outbreak for our city to act. Our shelters are hotspots for a virus spread. Even with the increased sanitation and hygiene practices in the shelters, these spaces are not safe with people living in spaces with up to 58 people. The McLean County Executive Committee shared last week that they have been designated 3 alternative housing sites for weeks now, including hotels. They've been designated for first responders, quarantined individuals, and those needing space for isolation, but they're not using any of these vacant spaces now. Our elected officials should not be waiting until an outbreak happens to address these housing gaps. During our meeting last week, the McLean County Board member George Gordon joined our meeting and shared that there is some kind of housing plans in progress with his colleagues, but that this has not been made public. We believe the public has a right to be informed about these plans to address these needs, and that everyday people should be a part of the decision-making process. So we are once again calling on you to reach out to officials on the McLean County Board and ask them what their plan is. As we're seeing what's happening in places like Chicago, where they were unprepared, we know this is a time to have a public plan and safe housing for everyone. We're going to be dropping a link in the chat right now for more information on how you can contact your elected individuals. Lewis will now share updates on direct aid.
Hey everyone, I'm Louis Goslin with Bloomington-Normal chapter of Democratic Socialists of America, and tonight we're joined by Councilwoman Jen Carrillo of Bloomington's Ward 6, who's one of our champions and has been helping along with our other allies on the council to lead the fight to ensure that the direct aid that our residents need to meet the financial hardships that they're facing now is something that our local officials are stepping up to provide. And so I will go ahead and hand things over to Jen.
Thank you, Louis. Hi, everybody. My name is Jen Carrillo. I'm a member of Illinois People's Action, of Black Lives Matter, of DSA, and a board member for One People's Campaign, as well as on my free time, I'm also the alderwoman for Ward 6. So in case you missed it, on Monday night, Alderman Jeff Crable introduced an initiative to place a direct aid program on the Bloomington City Council agenda for April 27th. And unfortunately, that motion failed 5-4. I'm frustrated, folks. Like many of you, I'm frustrated. And actually, scratch that. I'm not frustrated. I'm mad as hell. And this is way less mad than I was on Monday night. After witnessing the cowardly and heartless actions of several of my colleagues on the council. But when I find myself falling into despair or unfruitful rage, or I find myself saying, oh, gosh, I don't know what we do next. I don't know where we go from here. I look to my ancestors, and sometimes I look to my organizing ancestors. On December 18th of 1984, Shell Trapp addressed Iowa farmers participating in the Iowa CCI Minimum Price Conference in Des Moines, Iowa. I have taken his speech and I've adapted it to fit this virtual room that we are all sharing today. Blessed be the fighters, he started. The unknown angry man at the end of the idiot stick with his dream of freedom. Jawsmiths and soapboxers, gandy dancers setting the high iron towards the ultimate medicine hat. Blessed, blessed, blessed the agitator whose touch makes the dead walk. Blessed the organizer who discovers the strength of wounds. Blessed all fighters. Blessed be the fighters. Not the meek, not the whiners, not the bitter, not those who accept things as they are, but the fighters. Those who fight against things as they are, those who fight against institutions, who attempt to kill the human spirit. I'm sure you all have been told that the Direct Aid Initiative is dead after Monday's vote, that the city will never spend a dime trying to house homeless people, and that prisoners will never ever be released from McLean County Jail. Your presence here today means that you have said baloney to that statement and that you are going to fight. What those who tell you that our organizing efforts on COVID are dead and are obsolete are trying to do is not just to kill our organizing efforts, but to kill the human spirit and dignity. But they will never be able to kill the human spirit as long as you fight and organize. Every meeting you hold, every person you get to these meetings, every demonstration you organize is a statement, is a bold statement that you believe in our cause and in the dignity of all human beings. It's a big fight, you all know that. But anything worth having is worth having a big fight over. And I don't know anything more important than the work that we are doing here to preserve people's lives through this pandemic. Blessed be the fighters. The unknown angry man at the end of the idiot stick. The unknown angry man, let's talk about him. One of my heroes has always been Hannibal, the military genius who with his small army kept the Roman legions at bay. My guess is that a great deal of Hannibal's success was made possible by some nameless lieutenant who was never mentioned in the history books, who organized getting food and supplies, who carried out the great strategies of Hannibal, the unknown angry man. It's also my guess that the history books will record few, if any, of our names or any of our deeds. I doubt if anyone will remember our names 6 months, 10 years, 20 years from today. If history should record any of this, it will probably be a sentence that goes something like, during the pandemic, the city of Bloomington established a program to meet the needs of residents. And that will be it. None of our names will be recorded, but then the goal is not to get your name in the history books. You are the unknown angry men and women. You may remain unknown, but if you continue to stay angry and fight, you will win for your children the dignity of a future. And with that kind of victory, you don't need your name in a history book. With a dream of freedom towards the ultimate medicine hat. In other words, your ultimate victory, your dream of freedom. That is a big dream, but you have already, by your actions and involvement, begun to bring that dream to reality. No dream becomes reality by dreaming. Dreams come reality through work, through fighting, and through struggle. Blessed the agitator whose touch make the dead walk. You, my friends, are the agitators whose touch make the dead walk. And you should be proud of it. I'm sure that many a times in your meetings or upon meeting another person, you have been told nothing can be done. This is too big of a fight. There is no chance of winning. Folks who make comments like these to you are the dead, those without hope. Through your organizing and fighting, you bring the dead back to life. You show through your activity and through your involvement that you have hope. And this hope brings the dead and hopeless back to life and hope. So blessed be the agitators. Blessed be the organizers who discover the strength of wounds. The organizer sees wounds as an opportunity to organize, and in the process of organizing brings healing. The organizer recognizes not only the strength of those wounds, but also the dignity of those wounds. Right now, many of you here are wounded. You have lost your jobs. You have been unable to make April's rent and you are worried about May's. You are aching and you are tired. But none of those wounds are your fault. They have come about by a government that was not built to serve you, but the wealthy. They have come about by so-called experts that are trying to tell us that the data indicates that everybody is doing just fine and dandy through this pandemic. They have come about by some smart-ass council member who has never walked your path, but who tries to tell you people that you just need to call the right number, and if you haven't, then you must be stupid. Your presence here today says that you recognize the strength and dignity of your wounds and that you are looking to organize to win. May you be victorious. So I'll close with a little adaptation of that same poem. Blessed be the fighters, the unknown man at the end of the idiot stick with his dream of freedom, jawsmiths and soapboxers, the public commenters and Zoomers, the storytellers, the call to action sharers, the turnout phone call makers, the email blast writers, the food and supply deliverers. Blessed be the movement representative who is accountable to their people and doesn't forget where they come from. Blessed be the caretakers. We see you, though you are doing work that is often made invisible. Blessed be the essential workers who are sacrificed for the sake of another man's profit. Blessed be the poor, the unemployed, the insecure. Blessed be the rabble-rouser who gets told to sit down and shut up. Blessed be the agitator whose touch makes the dead walk. Blessed be the organizers who discover the strength of wounds. Blessed be the fighters, and blessed be all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jen. And yeah, that's exactly what we need to hear. That's what we need to keep in mind. And blessed be all of us who are here together continuing this fight. You know, I, like many, have put in a lot of time together working to try to move this vote that we need on the Bloomington City Council. And we're joined tonight by two of our greatest champions on that council. And it's up to us to see this through. It's up to us to see this through not only for the people who are needing it, but for for everyone who should be demanding the kind of respect and accountability from these council members who so brazenly just totally dismissed the needs that people are experiencing right now, and at the same time tried to silence us in the process. And so we're not going to give up. We're not going to let up. We're going to continue showing up and speaking out and demanding that there be action, that there be accountability, and that our tax dollars that we all contributed to the public coffers aren't sat on along with the hands of our other council members, but that we can create the political will and the demand that action be taken now. These are real challenges, real struggles, and real consequences, and we need real action now. And so I'm going to share a link, and I know I've already heard from people saying, well, you know, the first time we did a public comment, we didn't even see it on the agenda. This last time we did a public comment and they didn't take action. We need to continue to show up and speak out and make sure that they know that it doesn't matter how much they want to neglect or deflect or dismiss the kinds of needs and demands that we have. We're not going to let go of this. We're not going to let up, and we're going to continue showing up and holding them accountable. So on the page or on your screen is a link that I'll also drop in the chat box for how you can show up. They may not want to hear about this on the 27th, our next opportunity to speak during public comment, but we need to make sure that we're there ready to speak out, as well as all of our other community members and all those who are feeling this right now. So I'm going to go ahead and share this link and encourage everyone, don't be discouraged, keep fighting and keep reaching out and let these council members know that we mean business and we're not going anywhere. So with that, I will hand things off to Olivia, who will do a recap of all of the great action steps that we're going to take to make sure that this fight stays alive.
Okay, so thank you, Louis, and thank you, Jen. So we've got some action steps, right? Each week we try to give you a couple ways that you can take action. We encourage you to take action. I'm going to give you quite a few. So the first one is contact the Bloomington City Council and urge them to take discussion on and vote yes for direct aid for our community, right? We know that Jeff is here for it. We know that Jen is here for it. We're asking you to contact your council person or contact the City Council and tell them to vote yes for direct aid for our community. If you're able, please donate to our Call Fund fundraiser to help people stay in contact with their loved ones who are at the McLean County Jail right now. And then we would really like you to call or email your county board representative and ask them two things, right? The first is to waive or subsidize the cost for video visits and phone calls to inmates in the McLean County Jail. And the second is ask them what their plan is for safe housing. And when they know that plan, make that plan publicly available so that we, the community, can know it as well. If you or someone you know has been affected by COVID-19, you've lost your housing, you've lost your job, please share your story at protectourpeople.com/stories, and we'll have a box with all these links up pretty soon, or a slide with all the links up. And so those are kind of our big action steps for this week. And I know it sounds like a lot, right? But if one of these issues, decarceration or housing or direct aid, speaks to you, I'm asking you to take action on that issue. Okay, I understand that things are different. A lot of people have different responsibilities now that we are stuck at home, and a lot of people are doing volunteer work. A lot of people are out of a job. So I'm not asking that you do every single one of these actions, but if something speaks to you, right, take action on that item. Whether it's decarceration or housing or direct aid, take action. I encourage you to take action. So if you go to protectourpeople.com, as you can see on the screen, it has links to everything. It has links to donate. It has links to contact your representative on the McLean County Board. It talks to you a little bit about what we're trying to do on direct aid. So just one simple place for all of our action steps for this week. So now I'm going to pass it over to Joel, who's going to facilitate our question and answer portion. So if you've got questions, hopefully we've got answers.
Thank you so much, Olivia. And as always, we have some time reserved here at the end for questions. I want to just go ahead and thank everybody for joining, and especially thank Alderwoman Carrillo for really firing us up and having that inspirational message. But at this point, if anybody has questions for any of the panelists who have been on tonight, please throw them in chat, and we will do our best to get to everything that you have. And as always, panelists, if you see any questions that you'd like to respond to, go ahead and jump right in. I also want to let you all know, as always, we have someone here, Reverend Black, this week to close us out with a prayer. But after that, we do have a special surprise. We're going to have a video here. It's kind of a premiere. And so it's really great. It was made with a lot of love and labor from right here in our community for what's going to be much more of a national kind of thing. So make sure to stick around. Go ahead and drop any questions that you have in chat, and we'll take some more questions as well after we have an opportunity to watch that video. Okay, we have one here from Kate Brunk. And so Kate, I'm actually going to go ahead and invite you to talk. If you're willing, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Hi, I was just wondering if you're encouraging people when they're contacting their city council person or county board members, if you email your county board member or city council member who's representing your ward directly, are you encouraging people to identify themselves that way? I know I've gotten more responses from my city council member when I've identified myself as her constituent specifically. So I didn't know if that's something that you're recommending, or if you guys think that it is most effective to kind of do those large email blasts, or if both need to be happening.
Yeah, of course. Well, we have someone on here, Councilmember Carrillo. As a council member, what do you think about receiving messages from people outside of your ward?
So I actually think that it's a little bit even difficult to tell who is a member of your ward. And I think that the impact of having a full inbox is pretty dramatic. So I certainly would not limit yourself to just the person who is representing you, but I'd actually, if you're gonna write something, then you might as well send it to all of us, because I can tell you that, like, hopping on my city council email and then being like, yo, 25 messages from people who are saying support direct aid, like, creates a tangible impact in people, and it is creating a pressure that council members are responding to. So while yes, that's like the most ideal and impactful thing is for you to like reach out as a member of a specific ward or district, I do think it's like, if you're going to write something, you might as well send it to all of us.
Thank you so much, Jen, for that answer, and thank you, Kate, for that question. We had another question come in. So this question was, who might not be supported by the direct aid from the government? So I want to toss that to our panelists. Do we have somebody who's open to taking that? Neil.
Well, I guess my first response is, what direct aid? We have one check, and that's not really enough for households to make it through the question mark length that we are dealing with right now. And that's again for people who were able to get it in the first place. We don't know when people are going to get back to it. We don't know when that's safe. And I don't know about you, but $1,200 is not going to last all summer, realistically, for much of anybody. Individuals who did not receive that that check, individuals who didn't make enough last year, students who didn't have enough income, basically, and obviously anyone who was without a job, who did not file taxes, and people who are undocumented are all going to be left out in the dust by the federal response. On top of that, it's very late, and people who were expecting to use that to pay their April rent, etc., there's still people waiting for it. So there's so many gaps that local action is necessary.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Neil. Panelists, anybody else have anything else that they want to add to that?
Yes, people that have unconventional jobs, in particular, also students. Anybody who's over the age of 17 that is counted on claimed on somebody else's taxes will not get any money. The person that claims them will not get any money, and they will not get any money. And most students have created bills where they are. And a lot of students have leave, and so they probably had to break their house lease, and they probably owe utilities.
Reverend Black, we're losing you. Turn off your video. I bet your audio will come through
because they had to leave because of COVID-19, a check, or their. Okay. Oh, you didn't hear me? Okay, I was just saying that students, anyone who's over the age of 17 who is claimed on somebody else's taxes does not get a check for them. Most students have created bills where they are. Many students had to leave, and so they probably have unpaid utilities where they left. And so those are the people we're saying we need to get them a check.
Joel, you're on mute.
Thanks, and sorry, Reverend Black, we were losing you just a little bit, but thanks so much for that message. Panelists, anything else on that very important question?
I think it's worth mentioning that people without addresses are unsure about whether they're going to get their check, and you know, as can be expected from this federal administration, checks have been going to people in wrong houses, and so it's possible that if you haven't filed taxes in some time, even if you have filed taxes in the past, if for the years that they're taking into consideration, like your check might get sent to an old address, and if they don't hear back from you, then it doesn't get sent. And then additionally, for people who are not banked in traditional ways, that poses an additional barrier to receiving that aid. And so even though that aid is certainly not everything we're going to need, there is a whole bunch of people who are going to be left out of that package of aid, which is a reason why it's imperative that the cities step up and provide aid to people who are members of our community, even if they are not residents or citizens or didn't file taxes, because they are filing taxes here every day, that they are paying a sales tax, that they are paying an entertainment tax, that they're paying a gas tax. So that's your money and you need it back now. So that's all the more reason that we need to keep up the pressure on the city to step up.
I also want to point out that the Trump administration has been taking out some of their anti-immigrant agenda in this moment of crisis. And so just yesterday, there was an article in the Miami Herald that lifted up the fact that those who are in mixed status households, so if somebody is either not yet a citizen, perhaps are using an individual tax identification number, the entire household loses their opportunity to receive a stimulus check just for being in a mixed status household. And so I'll drop that link there, but it's worth a look at how this crisis is being exploited by people who have an agenda. Yeah, so anyhow, just one more sort of group of people who are being cut out.
Thank you. Okay, we've got one more comment from Cecilia, and then we're going to move on to our message from Reverend Black. Again, we're going to have that video premiere, and then we will come back for more questions at the end. Cecilia?
Yeah, I just was going to mention two other groups that might be left out of direct aid if spouses filed their taxes together. One spouse may get the package, and if they've broken up or if it's a domestic violence situation, one of the people might be completely left out of getting that money. And I've already heard of a few people who are having that issue right now. And then also individuals are homeless who've not filed for taxes, didn't have an income to claim. They have to go through a separate process, and with lack of technology, the library's closed and limited places for Wi-Fi, it makes it even harder for them to get that direct stimulus. So just wanted to say that as well.
Thank you. Clearly, there are a lot of people who are being left out of this federal response, which I think really drives home why this direct aid piece is so important, because obviously there are so many exceptions and caveats, hoops people have to jump through and what not. So thanks so much for all those answers, and thank you for the question. I want to pass it now to Reverend Black, if you're with us, and if your video and audio are working, for a closing message before our video premiere.
Let us pray. Wonderful God, you've heard our concerns. You've seen the work that we've been doing. We ask, God, that you would empower us, that you would give us strategies, that you would give us actions. God, we ask that you would give us more people that would boots on the ground, that would work towards justice in this community. God, we ask that you would have mercy upon those that have been affected and infected by COVID-19. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Black. And without further ado, here is the video premiere, again, with a lot of labor and love from right here in this community.
Around the world and throughout the nation, we are in a moment of crisis. To date, the COVID-19 virus has infected nearly 2 million people and has taken the lives of tens of thousands worldwide, with the death count growing each day. On every block, in every neighborhood, there is a shared feeling of danger as our lives and livelihoods are threatened, our sense of normalcy is destroyed, and the gravity of what's at stake weighs down on each of us. But what we may not immediately recognize is that crises present us with both grave dangers and big openings for change. The word crisis comes from the Greek word krisis, which describes the turning point in a disease, when the sick person could take a turn for the better or for the worse. In moments of crisis, society stands at a crossroads, faced with different possible paths forward and needing to make a decision about which way we go. Now, many of us are probably still thinking, I hope this is over soon so things can go back to normal. But back to normal is not an option. Here's why.
Only a crisis, actual or perceived, produces real change. When that crisis occurs, the actions that are taken depend on the ideas that are lying around. That, I believe, is our basic function, to develop alternatives to existing policies and to keep them alive and available until the politically impossible becomes the politically inevitable.
Milton Friedman was a leading force in advancing the corporate agenda that has reshaped our economy and government for the worse over the last 50 years. Friedman was wrong about a lot of things, but he was right about crises and the opportunities they create. Corporations and the politicians that serve them understand this very well, and they will use the COVID-19 crisis to reorganize society in their favor. They've done it before, and not so long ago. When the Twin Towers fell on 9/11, we felt grief, fear, and uncertainty. But a set of political and corporate leaders sensed an opportunity to grow their power and move an agenda. Before the dust had even settled, they started telling a story about protecting us from terrorism by vilifying Muslims and immigrants, and reshaped our society by dragging us into war, locking down borders, and seizing broad, unchecked powers to spy on everyday people. Meanwhile, our movement was ill-equipped to beat back these attacks. The result? Tens of thousands of needless deaths, our privacy sold to the highest bidder, and the further militarization of our country, all things which brought immense profits to a bunch of corporations at our expense. Now let's look at another crisis, the 2008 financial crash, and how things played out a little different there. When Wall Street crashed our economy, stripping millions of homes, jobs, and pensions, they immediately sought to take advantage of the crisis they created by lobbying for a huge taxpayer-funded bailout. This time, we were more prepared to step into that opening and fight back, but we still didn't have the power we needed to rebuild an economy that worked for all of us in the wake of the financial crisis. So they got their bailout. But we kept working, organizing loads of new people and helping them make meaning of the pain and loss they were experiencing, and putting forward big ideas around what a new economy could look like. And as the economic recession wore on, these big ideas took hold in people's hearts and spread like wildfire through the Occupy movement. It took 3 years, but we were able to turn a material crisis, the 2008 crash and recession, into a crisis of legitimacy. In other words, a moral crisis that made everyday people across the country really question the status quo. Folks started to see beyond individual bad actors and see the ways that the whole system had been rigged in the interests of big corporations. And more people started to see the control that big corporations had over both political parties. So, while we didn't win everything we wanted in that moment, that moral crisis paved the way for more big ideas, like Medicare for all, the Green New Deal, a homes guarantee, and canceling student debt. And politics in this country hasn't been the same since. So now let's come back to the COVID-19 crisis. We can already see the story that the corporate elite and their purchased politicians are selling to avoid accountability for this crisis and use it to advance their own agenda. But we know the truth. They created the very crisis that they are now seeking to exploit. What would have been a challenge, the spread of a pandemic, has become a full-blown health and economic catastrophe precisely because of the ways that the rich and powerful have dismantled the social safety net, denied care to millions, and driven most Americans into a paycheck-to-paycheck existence. That ain't right. This crisis requires us to face the immediate dangers it presents to our lives. We must do our part to flatten the curve, take care of each other, and reduce harm to our communities. But it's also our responsibility to be strategic and address the danger of what will happen if the culprits of the crisis get to be the only ones presenting solutions to it. There's an old saying that all organizing is reorganizing. The period we are in and that will follow this crisis is the ultimate reorganizing moment and will determine what is possible for decades to come. Everything is up for grabs. Beliefs, power, policy, and culture. This is why things won't go back to normal, because forces from every direction are seeking to be agents in that reorganization. So, we have to decide. Will we sit on the sidelines hoping for back to normal? Or will we take this opening and fight like hell to win what we need? Here are 3 things to get us started.
We must use this moment to put forward big, bold demands and make them part of a new common sense. In this moment, it's clear to most of the country that tiny relief checks aren't going to cut it. Millions of people support ideas that would have seemed like a radical agenda just a few weeks ago. Medicare for all, paid time off, housing as a human right, the cancellation of debt, and more. People need these things now, and they're more winnable than ever. Winning on these issues can save lives and keep millions more from falling into poverty. And if we win these things, we'll help normalize policies that the corporate elite have spent decades and billions of dollars trying to undermine.
To win big demands that deliver relief in the here and now, and set us up to win in the long term, we will need many more people to join the fight. So this is a moment that calls for organizing. Tens of millions of people, maybe more, are significantly more ready for organizing than they were just weeks ago, as the gross injustices of our systems are laid bare for everyone to see. Millions need support and connection now. This is a moment to bring those folks in and build a bigger we.
To do this, we need to help our families, friends, and neighbors make meaning out of this moment. If we don't help folks make a new meaning, they'll fall back into old narratives centered on shame, fear, and scarcity. One meaning people could take away is that China and Chinese people are at fault for this crisis, a distraction that Trump and the right-wing media are seeking to drive. Or they may blame themselves for not having the resources to weather these difficult times on their own. Instead, we can use this moment to make it clear that we found the villain and it is not each other. We can expose the corporate actors and the right-wing political hacks who turned this challenge into a catastrophe. We can show how the so-called magic hand of the free market is not going to save us. And we can use this as a moment to reclaim the idea that we need a strong and democratic government that serves the common good. If we can shape how people understand this crisis, we can shape the story of what could happen next.
Remember, crisis means we are at a turning point. We can come out of this crisis more whole and healthy as a people, or we could take a turn for the worse. It all depends on how powerfully we respond in this moment.
So thank you for staying with us through that amazing video. Again, as I mentioned before, huge labor of love from people right here. You may have recognized the voice of Jen Carrillo, who is on with us. And also a big shout out to Billy Kirkton, who worked really hard on that, and obviously some other local faces that you might have recognized. So I believe that there is going to be a premiere of this video. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. So aside from the organizations that I'm a part of and the organizing that I do in my free time and the council member gig, I am a staff person for National People's Action, formerly now People's Action. And you guys are actually the first audience to see this video, like, ever, outside of myself and my co-collaborator, Billy Kirkton. So thank you for watching. And we are going to be launching this video officially nationwide on Friday at noon Central on the People's Action Institute Facebook page. So we invite you to come be a part of that premiere. You get to sit through that awesome video with that awesome narrator again. And then you can help us share it out to make sure that it makes a big splash and that we get our analysis out there to encourage other people to do the kind of organizing that you all are already doing here in our community.
Yep, and we are going to cut that video out of this one before we share it on Facebook or YouTube. So you're going to have to wait until Friday to see that again. But we promised that we'd have another opportunity for questions and answers after the video. So please, if you have any more questions, drop them in chat. I know we have some that we didn't get to already. We had one from Joyce. So Joyce, I'm going to go ahead and let you unmute yourself if you're willing to ask your question, which I believe was about the video fees. Joyce, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
I think you're unmuted, Joyce. Go for it.
Joyce, we can't hear you. I'll give you another second. Otherwise, I'll read your question for you if we don't get you.
We had trouble with her mic last night too, Joel. So why don't you just read the question?
Well, sorry that we can't hear from you, Joyce. But Joyce had asked, is it legal for the county board to get a commission from IC Solutions? And have we established that they do actually get a commission? Olivia?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We haven't seen the current contract, but we do have a FOIA from the last contract. And between June 1st, 2017 and May 31st, 2018, the average that McLean County received in commission from inmate telephone revenue was $4,200 a month. So that's what we have in the last FOIA. We're looking to the McLean County Board to let us know what the current commission that they receive off those video calls is. And if we have to do a FOIA to get that number, we will probably do that.
Thank you, Olivia. Obviously, a lot more that we still need to identify, more to learn on that, but it seems like there's things that we can absolutely do and need to contact our county board members, right? Okay, so we had another question from Derek Evans about the upcoming elections in 2021. So Derek, I've allowed you to speak. You should be able to unmute yourself now. Derek, you should be able to hit unmute. If you prefer not to speak, I'll give you another second and then I'll read for you. Okay, well, Derek had said, how many of the council members are up for election this season? For those who are up, has anyone decided to run against them? We are trying to get them to hopefully represent their constituents, but if they aren't, should they be in their job anymore? So panelists, anybody want to take that one?
No, they shouldn't.
Anything more to add, Louis? The question had included how many of the council members are up.
So every other year, oh, sorry, Jeff, do you want to take it? That's fine. Okay, so every other year, basically, or every 2 years, the ward system goes that the even number wards are up for election and the odd number wards are up for election than in 2 years. So Jeff and I were elected 1 year ago, almost exactly 1 year ago. And those were the even number wards. So everybody in an odd number ward is up for election next April. And so that includes Jamie Matthey, who was a no vote for direct aid. Maboka Malambwe, who was a no vote for direct aid. Johnny Painter, who was a no vote for direct aid. Scott Black, who was a yes vote for direct aid. And Kim Bray, who was a strong no vote for direct aid. So those are all the people that are up for re-election, and so far no one has announced against them. And unfortunately, a lot of these races often go unchallenged.
And I would say for anybody that's out there that is interested and like-minded to us here, run for those positions.
The deadline to run is not until December, but you have to live in that ward already. So if you don't know what ward you live in, I'm sure that there are folks on this call who would be happy to help you figure that out.
I can do that. Happy to help if you're interested.
Okay, and panelists, if you saw any questions that you want to make sure get answered, feel free to jump in. If you have any more questions, we'll probably take about 2 more. So feel free to drop those in and chat.
Hey, I had a question for Jen.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Like, that video was awesome, right? And it was so smooth, but like how many hours would you say you and Billy put into that?
Yeah, it was about a 60-hour affair, but we are actually hoping that this is part of a political education series that our organization, People's Action, continues to put out in the world, because we think it's really important for folks to be providing an analysis of this moment. Many of us are terrified about what's happening, and fear can be paralyzing. And so we want to make sure that we are making folks aware of the organizing opportunities before us. And even though some folks are like, let's not politicize this crisis, the reality is that the other side is already mobilizing to politicize this crisis. And so if we are not ready to meet that fight, we are going to get our butts kicked, and we are going to wake up in a world that is way less aligned to our values than we did before this pandemic. But there is huge openings for us to make things like Medicare for all, the cancellation of debt, and all of these big ideas advance in this moment. So we're very, fortunate to have the kind of organizing community that we have here in Bloomington-Normal to help us put all that stuff into action and make the best out of a really, really bad situation.
Yep. Okay, we had one final question that we'll take, and we had a couple people ask about township assistance, and what is the assistance that's already going out to people now that we're trying to increase and supplement, because obviously the assistance that we already do is not enough. And so I can tell you that, one, this varies a little bit depending on where you're at, but there are a lot of state and federal rules that regulate what these townships can do. And we have a bill from 1994, which had Democratic and Republican support to think for that. And I'm gonna pass it to Jeff in a moment to talk about what this means specifically in Bloomington. But statewide in Illinois, township assistance is limited to only be somewhere around a few $100s a month if you're receiving generalized assistance. You can also apply for emergency assistance if you're facing a hardship like eviction or foreclosure, but that's limited to 1 time a year by state statute. And by state statute, that money, if you can't make up the difference between what your township will provide and the cost of your rent, they won't give you anything. You also have to fill out a bunch of paperwork. You basically have to give them documentation of every single asset that you own, go through all of your income, just papers on papers, folders and folders, just to even be eligible to qualify. Now, it does look a little bit different. So Normal, for example, raised the amount that you qualify for a couple of years back. So in Normal, now you can qualify for over $900 in emergency assistance. You can do that on an annual basis if you need it. And they also ease up so that you can qualify for over $500 in utility assistance if you fall behind on your electric bill or water bill or something like that. So keep those numbers in mind. Around $900 for if you're facing eviction, and around $500 if you're facing an electric shutoff. So Jeff, what does that look like in Bloomington?
It doesn't look good. So in Bloomington, the max amount you can get is $312. You know, which doesn't go far, which I believe is the minimum that township you know, can offer. And like Joel said, they actually have up to 30 days to actually respond. So it sometimes is not a quick process. And so while it does help some with rent and with utilities and sometimes food, it just doesn't go far enough.
Yep, exactly. So much more that we need to do. So Jeff, Jen, our leaders on the call, our champions, thank you so much for the work that you've done. And I hope everybody who is on this call tonight is going to continue to push so that we can get more of your colleagues on board with what's morally, ethically right, and will make sense for us. So if we didn't get to your question tonight, I'm sorry. I see at least one other great one. If you want somebody to reach out to you, just make sure to drop your contact information in the chat and we'll have somebody reach out to you. You can also always email us and somebody will get back to you at organizingoncovid@gmail.com. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Protectourpeople.com for all of the links, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for having us. Blessed be the fighters.